All right, so we're deriving the formula for the quadratic formula. So here we have our regular sort of general form quadratic equation, set equal to 0, very, very important. And for completing the square, we had to divide through by a first. So we're going to divide every single term by a. What is the second term going to become? B over a times x, or bx over a, same thing. Plus? C over a. And then 0 divided by a is just 0, right? Okay. And then what was the second thing you had to do for completing the square? Yeah, move that constant term to the other side. So we're going to take that term and move it over. And I'm going to add in some blank spaces, just like we did yesterday. So x squared plus b over a times x plus a blank space equals negative c over a plus another blank space. And then how do we complete the square? What is the value that goes in here? Okay, so half of this thing, so that would be 1/2 of b over a, and then we have to square it, right? And so that would be, let's see, if you were to simplify that, b squared over 4a squared. Very good. Okay. What happened?
Oh, you distributed the...
Yeah, this is 2 being squared. 2 squared becomes 4. A squared, and b squared, b squared. Okay. All right. Now, that term that we just created factors. Okay, this trinomial actually factors. And it factors, what times what is x squared? X times x would be x squared. And then to get b over a, it's actually just this inside piece. B over 2a. And so if I were to write this out 2 times and actually try to FOIL it out, x times x is x squared. This becomes b over 2ax, and then another b over 2ax, and then last times last is b over 2a quantity squared. Okay. And this is sort of like 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1 whole thing when you combine those together. So that's where that comes from. Okay. All right, over here, what do we need to do? Common denominator. All right, so I have the a. What else does this side need? A 4 and another a, right? Okay. All right. So then we have, let's see, it's over 4, okay, over 4a squared. My numerator, negative 4ac plus, can I write that b squared minus 4ac? Is that okay to do? Yeah, okay. And then what do you need to do? Yeah, I gotta get rid of the power, so we take a square root of both sides. And don't forget, what do we not want to forget? Oh, the plus or minus, always, always. Okay, good. So then I have x plus b over 2a equals plus or minus. Let's see, this is the square root of the top. I don't know if I can simplify that, so I'm going to leave it b squared minus 4ac. All over, what's the square root of 4a squared? 2a. And then I'm going to take this and move it over. So x equals the opposite of b over 2a plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Could I put those under the same denominator?
Yeah.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. That is x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your quadratic formula. Isn't that interesting where it came from? Now you never have to memorize it. You can just derive it all day and night.
Oh my God.
Just in case. Just in case, right? Okay. All right. right. Well, it's all stuff you could do if you really wanted to. But for most of us, we prefer to just go and memorize the quadratic formula. This is the one thing in life you really, really need to memorize. It helps to sing it to Pop Goes the Weasel. All right. X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. All right. I will sing it all the time. And you should practice it because it's really important that you learn it correctly. You memorize it correctly is very key. The other thing is, where's the x?
What?
It's equal to x. Are there any x's over here? No, never. Okay? The most common mistake is kids think it's the b, which is bx, so they put in a bx here. All right? No, b is the number in front of the x. All right? And the c is the constant, and the a is the number in front of the x squared. So we're going to memorize this formula and be able to apply it correctly. So here we go. Example 1, use the quadratic formula to solve. And yes, those are the instructions. Use the quadratic formula. You need to practice with the quadratic formula. It's works all the time. Just like the completing the square, it works all the time. But you have to do it a lot to do it correctly. So many students make mistakes with the quadratic formula. It's ridiculous. So please use it carefully. We're going to verify graphically. Again, you can check your answers using your calculators pretty easily. So we have, first of all, what is the first step in using the quadratic formula? The first,
put it in standard form.
Put it in that general form. It must be set equal to 0. First steps first is make sure your equation is set equal to 0. And we want to make sure that we're in that general form, the ax squared plus bx plus c. And so this first one's already in that form for us. And so we want to make sure we understand, what is the a? 2. What's the b value? 1. What's the c value? -5. Good. And now, what is the quadratic formula? X equals the opposite of b plus or minus, sing along, the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Very good. Oh, okay. All right. So we have x equals, I want you to say the opposite of b. Why do I not want you to say negative b? It's not always negative.
B was in.
Yeah, b was, yeah, exactly. If b was already negative, we don't keep it negative. We turn it to the opposite. So that's why we say the words the opposite of b. So our opposite of b is going to be -1 plus or minus the square root of. Now, for b squared, I want you to do that in your head. B squared is 1. Do that in your head. And then -4. I want you to do a times c in your head. -10. A times c. I want you to do it in your head. All divided by 2 times a. You can definitely do that in your head too. 2 times 2 is 4. All right. So we have x equals -1 plus or minus the big giant square root. Here, do we do 1 minus 4? No. Why? PEMDAS. Very good answer, sir. PEMDAS. We must multiply first. This becomes 1 plus 40 all over 4. So we have -1 plus or minus the square root of 41 over 4. Are there any pairs in 41 I can pull out? No. Okay. Good. You're done. Okay? You can leave it like that. So what are the two answers, just so we're clear? What are the two answers? -1 plus radical 41 over 4. And can you plug that into your calculator, please? I just want to make sure you know how to plug that in correctly. The other answer is x equals -1 minus radical 41, all divided by 4. $1.35 for the first one. Good. Whoops.
Oh wait, that's the rest.
So the general rule for rounding in math, which is really highly scientific, usually is for whatever year of math you're in, that's how many decimal places you should have. So I guess technically you should have 3 decimal places, but in this case, 2 is fine. The third decimal place is a 0. There's no really scientific answer to that. It's not like chemistry where significant figures is super important. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, did you get the proper approximations for that? No. Okay. So, did you try to plug in the whole thing in your calculator? Yes. Which means this is a grouping symbol. It's telling you to add those together first and then divide. So if you plugged it all in one shot, then you need to put parentheses around that numerator. Okay, so this is a big problem with using calculators, is making sure that you're communicating with your calculator how to approximate those decimals. So again, make sure you can do that correctly. It's really important. Okay, did that work that time?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. Letter B. What should we do? Add 25. Good. So 36x squared minus 60x plus 25 equals 0. They're large numbers, so I definitely going to rely on my calculator. Is there a GCF I could divide out? Because that'd be nice. No. Darn. Okay. So just so we're clear, A is equal to 36, B is equal to -60, and C is equal to 25. Do you have to write that down? No, God, no. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all together now. The quadratic formula is x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Very good, ladies and gentlemen. Give yourselves a hand. That's great. Okay. So x equals the opposite of b would be what? Positive 60 plus or minus the square root of b squared. We're going to do that in our head. What is 60 squared? 3,600. Very good. Minus, you know what I want to do, since they're big numbers anyway, can I just do the minus the 4ac all in my calculator? 4 times 36 times, whoops, not the tangent of, okay, 4 times 36 times 25. And I'm going to do that all in my calculator because it's giant. Oh, 3,600. Oh, that's cool. Over 2 times a. 2 times a is 72. Okay. So x equals 60 plus or minus 0. And that's the square. What is the square root of 0? 0. Okay, just checking. So do we care about this plus or minus 0? No. Oh, no. Okay, so over 72. So x equals 60 over 72, which reduces by 12? Yeah. 5 over 6? Oh, that's interesting. What do you suppose? This one had 2 answers. Do you know the shape of this? Do you know what a parabola? Yeah.
But it touches it up when its butt is on the axis.
Its butt is on the axis. I love it. That's fantastic. Yeah. So our first parabola had two x-intercepts. Remember, when we're solving for x, we're getting x-intercepts. So it's crossing the axis at 1.35 and negative 1.85, and it's an upward. So it looks something like this. This parabola only has one x-intercept, so you're exactly right. It's sitting at 5, 6. It's sitting on the axis. This is an upward parabola, and he's sitting on the axis. There's only one point of intersection, okay? Does that make sense to you? And this is totally something that you could put in your calculator to see. So you could take this equation and plug it into y1 if you wanted to. Take a look at it. But very cool. All right, and then let's do one more. X squared minus 4x plus 8 equals 0. So first it's already set equal to 0. That's good. A equals 1. B equals negative 4. C equals 8. And what's the formula? X equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Very good. I love it. Okay. Y'all just made my day. That was great. Okay. I'm easy to please. Right. What is the opposite of b? Positive 4. Plus or minus the square root of b squared is what? Always positive. The reason I want you to do this in your head is because b squared should always result in a positive value. If you do negative 4 squared in your calculator, what's it going to give you? Negative 16. Which would be wrong. Why? You have
Because it's not squaring the negative.
Yeah, it's not squaring the negative. So we want to take negative 4 and square the entire thing. So if you use your calculator, you'd have to tell it, don't forget the parentheses, okay? Which is why I don't like you to rely on the calculator, especially something small you can do in your brain. So make sure that number is always positive. All right, minus, we can do this in our head, 4 times a times c. 4 times a times 1 is 32. All right, all over 2 times 1, which is just 2. So we have 4 plus or minus. What is 16 minus 32? Negative 16 over 2. My pen is dying. So I have, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and divide the 2. Never mind, I'm not going to. Yeah, okay. I'm going to split it apart. Can I split it apart?
Yeah.
All right. 4 over 2? I am breaking up this 2. What is the 2 dividing?
Well, no.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Can we clean up this radical negative 16? Yeah, how does it clean up? 4i, very good, over 2, and that's going to reduce to 2 plus or minus 2i. Very good. What does this look like, graphically speaking? Good. It's a floater. So we lovingly call it a floater. All right. So it's hovering above the x-axis. There's imaginary intersections. They're not really there. Okay. All righty, ladies and gentlemen. Do you have questions for me? All right. But yes. No, you're going to write 2 plus or minus 2x. Just for your practice with imaginary. All right, ladies and gentlemen.